Oyster shells from this weekend's Lowcountry Oyster Festival will eventually provide a new home for oysters along our coast. But as Molly McBride reports, these shells have quite the journey ahead before returning to the water.
This morning, SCD&R employees gathered at Boone Hall, loading their trucks with roughly 80,000 oyster shells from the weekend. About 3% of the total shells they'll recycle this year.
We have a saying that every shell counts, and we go out of our way to grab as much shell as we can. We're a pretty small staff, unfortunately, so we do kind of have limitations. So we love partnering with big events like this.
Wildlife biologist Cody Potvin says only about 15 employees maintain the oyster resources for our entire state.
One of the big problems is a lot of people don't know they don't know what we do, and they don't know why we're doing it.
The shells are moved from Boone Hall to a quarantine site in North Charleston. Here they'll sit for 6 months, shedding any parasites or diseases they're carrying. Their next stop, a shell pile on James Island, where they'll be bundled into bags to re-enter the water. Once in the water, wildlife biologist Nick Plaisted says they'll recruit more oysters to build oyster beds. These will provide habitat for marine life, filter water, and prevent shore erosion.
Lastly, they're a great resource, right? I mean, they're food for us, and it's actually an economic resource as well.
The whole process relying on receiving shells, which Plaisted says they get from drop-off sites around the state, restaurants, and oyster roasts like this weekend's. But of the roughly 300,000 oyster bushels consumed in our state every year, only about 34,000 bushels are recycled. A reason Potvin says awareness is key.
We want people to know that they should be recycling oysters, that if you go to a restaurant and you're loading up your plate with oyster shells, try to keep trash out of it. If you're at a restaurant, maybe ask them, hey, do you guys recycle these?
Reporting for Live 5 News, I'm Molly McBride.